Sharks in the Time of Saviors by Kawai Strong Washburn. A native Hawaiian boy plunges into shark-infested water, and his mother jumps in after him. The family thought that a glass-bottom boat ride, living the day like tourists for once after so many years in poverty on the Big Island, would be a fresh breath, a break in their life that has just been this storm. But it ends up being just another tragedy. Nainoa has sharks encircling him, and his mother, she opens her eyes underwater after diving and expects only one sight, to see her son just torn to shreds by these predators. But instead, one of the sharks picks Nainoa up gently, closes his jaws around him without spilling a drop of blood, and carries him straight to his mother's arms. Now, the rest of the people on the glass-bottom boat saw this, and they become a bit of local celebrities and even national celebrities for a little while, and with that, they begin receiving many donations. So Nainoa's powers, his connection to the island around him, he also has the ability to heal using the energy of the island. At some point, one of their childhood friends blows his hand off with a firework, and he's able to completely heal that hand before he even arrives at the hospital. But will Nainoa's powers bring his family closer together and save them, or will it tear them apart? I wanted to feature a native Hawaiian author on the channel, and so I chose Kawai Strong Washburn. Anyway, this book was published in 2020. It's very much a family drama, and we follow in first person each of the 5 members of this family, starting with the mother and the conception of Nainoa, who has the powers. And there is this tension, this ever-present tension of whether or not the other 2 children, his sister Kaui or his brother Dean, have much of a purpose. Now, there's not much I can compare this book to with sci-fi or fantasy that I've read. The closest thing I can compare it to is David Foster Wallace's works, because there is a very critical, almost cynical sort of edge to the prose. And Washburn is able to capture a very different perspective with each one of these characters. He's one of these authors who doesn't need to adhere to all of the grammatical rules, because he knows the rules well enough to break them for style, for voice. He's really great at writing for voice, which is everything when it comes to fiction. If you're going to write any genre, you have to be able to infuse voice into your writing. In fact, Washburn is so good at capturing voice with his writing that I think the best way to tackle this novel is to go from perspective to perspective. And our very first POV is going to be the parents of the Flores family, Malia and Augie. Now, we start with Malia's point of view. We don't get Augie's point of view until the very last chapter, or very last few chapters of the book. Malia is the most devout believer in her son, and so we start this novel with her recounting of his conception, which can be a little bit explicit for my taste, but it gets the job done. So her and Augie have this pickup truck that they drive all the way up to the top of the mountain where there's nobody else, and they wait for all of the high school students and everyone to leave until they're all alone, and they have their fun. But it's interrupted by what are called night marchers. These strange, almost like lantern-like glowing objects in the night that filter through the forests. And they're terrified, of course, because they've heard legends of all these things. They jump back into the cab and fly down the mountain. Now, that's the night that Nainoa was conceived. And of course, he has these powers, this connection to the island. And Malia believes that these 2 events are heavily connected. Now, Malia and Augie Flores, they stay on the island for the remainder of the book. However, the 3 children, Nainoa, Dean, and Kaui, they each eventually leave to the mainland. And we find this book's critical edge in this movement, because all of their lives decrease in quality steadily as they leave. I talked a bit about how Nainoa has these powers, this connection to the land, and how he was able to save his childhood friend's hand after it being blown off by a firework. So he attempts to use this power in many other ways. He has locals come to their family home. They hope that he can heal them when doctors can't. But this has a major strain on him. It's extremely, extremely difficult. There are some serious drawbacks to these abilities that he has. I'm going to leave it at that. He is seen as this incredibly important person on the island and in their local community. Now, Dean and Kawai, his brother and sister, have to somehow find their own identity within this. Their famous brother is all that anyone seems to care about, including their parents. Now, Kawai pushes herself mentally and is able to be at the top of her class each and every time, and she eventually heads to the mainland to go to university in San Diego. And Dean, on the other hand, he's a pothead. So he's not very good at school, but he is an incredible, incredible basketball player. He pushes himself each and every day on the court. He's there all the time, every waking moment. Eventually, he gets a scholarship to go to his own university in Washington and play basketball, and he kicks ass there. Nainoa, too, eventually finds his own way to the mainland. After graduating Harvard, he becomes a paramedic, where he really tries to tap into his powers and save people. He goes through some really dark situations trying to save drug addicts from overdoses, gunshot wounds, really, really gruesome stuff. And he keeps putting himself into it no matter how much it strains on him. And like I said, there are some serious drawbacks to this. But what we find is that each of these three children who go to the mainland, their lives become progressively worse the farther they get away from home. And the structure of this book is really interesting. You know, of course, Nainoa is clearly, based on what I've explained to you, clearly the most interesting. And for the first third of the book, they make a point to give us a lot of Nainoa's story here. And it is, everything does revolve around that. But we find through the struggles of both Dean and Kawai finding their own identity, that they actually become more interesting, and the book knows this. Washburn understood this. So you're jumping between perspective and perspective, but eventually we get more of a focus on Dean and Kawai. We have some purposeful frustrations built up with her as she wants kind of nothing to do with her family. She wants to get the hell away from Hawaii in every way that she possibly can, and she ends up falling into not a great crowd and makes some very questionable decisions. But as we get towards the end of the book, she more than justifies her own existence here and ends up becoming probably my favorite character in the novel. But yes, there is this whole theme of coming home to heal. And after visiting Hawaii here, I'm on Oahu at the moment, I can see that there is this dichotomy of like you have Honolulu with this crazy busy city, definitely not my vibe whatsoever. But as soon as we were able to get out and see a bit more of the island and see a bit more of the nature here, like where I am right now, you can see that there is something very special here. There's something just truly magical here. And the book is split up into sections. In section 3, which encapsulates the climax and the resolution, I gotta say the climax was incredible. It was, Washburn really exceeded my expectations here. And you know, I agree with the themes of excess tourism. You know, I live in Monterey, California, and to a much lesser degree, which I can now comprehend that it is a much lesser degree, I've watched my town sort of turn into more of like a novelty over time. And I can only imagine how this has been generation after generation. That must be incredibly frustrating to see these things that you see as very dear, that are very like authentic, just real world things turned into like Disney-fied nonsense. And this is, I'm just another haole here, you know, I literally am just another fucking one of these people who's kind of like profiting off of the experiences here. And you can say, yes, tourism is important, you need this constant inflow of money, but I don't know, I feel like not everyone feels that way. I wouldn't imagine that everyone here feels that way. I think that if things were a little bit slower, people would probably be a little happier. One thing I really like about this book is that after reading it, I haven't been able to really pin it down. You can't say, it's about this, or it's about that, or this is what Washburn probably thinks. No, you just have like a lot of ideas that are strung together in a pretty tight and cohesive narrative, but you can't pin it down. And I enjoy books like this. It makes it feel like it has a life of its own. Now I'm going to talk about a few of my criticisms, which aren't really that harsh. Number one, there are some really surprising scatological themes in this. In fact, Kaui with her love interest, I don't think of this as spoiling. In fact, I think you should probably know about this ahead of time so you're not like, what the fuck? Because I said that audibly like 8 times while I was reading just these few paragraphs. But so her love interest, the way she receives her first kiss or gives her first kiss is in a bathroom stall with her friend who is just straight up having diarrhea. And it's so odd. I was really taken aback by that, and you have many things like that beforehand. It's a very particular brand of comedy, and one thing I've found, at least with my own writing, is that my comedy isn't as good as I think. So I'll have, in first drafts, I'll have a ton of jokes. I'll make all these dirty jokes, and then I have to kind of systematically cut them out. It's like that slaying your darlings thing. So I get it. I get how that feels. You don't want to get rid of it. You feel like, oh, this is the flavor here. But no, I'm telling you right now, you could have not had that, and it would have had just as much flavor. And it didn't ruin the book for me. Let me say it did not ruin the book for me. So I guess if Washburn feels like, oh, if I didn't have these scenes then it wouldn't be authentic, cool. I get it. But at the same time, I feel like, at least from my perspective, it didn't seem entirely necessary, and it was a little odd. And it happened in not just Kaui's perspective, but many perspectives. So it seemed like it was kind of this all-encompassing thing where you just have literal shit everywhere. And maybe that's saying something. Maybe I'm just straight up not smart enough to understand it. But that's my main criticism for the book. I had a really great time with this one, and I'm gonna read some more Native Hawaiian authors. Even just while hiking here, I had someone stop by and say, oh yeah, my wife's an author and she wrote this book. So I wrote that down. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna buy it. Always support your local authors. If you haven't checked it out yet, my debut novel, Lethal Circuit, just released. It just was published. I've got the whole first section of the book as an audio drama with a full voice cast, soundtrack, spaceship sounds, all sorts of stuff. It's for free on my YouTube channel. I'll put the link of it right at the end here. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.
Attention. Attention.
Just stay calm.
5,000 feet. 10,000 feet. 15,000 feet. Hallelujah.